So today I'm going to show you guys how to replace the lower ball joint on the 2004 Honda Accord. And um, so the right lower ball joint on this is significantly loose, and if we don't replace it, it could be dangerous and lead to the wheel coming off. So before I even jack up the car, make sure your e-brake is on, and then before I remove the lug nuts and jack up the car, first of all, I'm going to remove the axle nut. So there's a dimple right here, and you're going to need to flatten it out and then use a 32 mil to loosen up the center axle nut. So after you flatten out that dimple, use your impact driver and use the impact driver to loosen up the axle nut, and it is a 36 mil for the Honda Accords. Now after loosening all 5 of your lug nuts but still keeping them on, then you can jack up the car, and then once the car is jacked up on the right side, then you can remove the lug nuts and take off the wheel. So now that you jacked up the right side of the car, what I like to do is put a second jack stand under and also put the tire under with some wooden blocks so that supports the car in case one of the jack fails. Now use a 14 mil socket on the impact driver to remove the tie rod. For some reason when they reinstall it, mine's supposed to have a cotter pin, so make sure you pull out the cotter pin as well. For this right side, now that the tie rod is out of place, we can just turn the steering knuckle. I'm not even going to bother pulling out the calipers. I'm going to just turn the steering knuckle over, and here's the lower ball joint that we got to replace. So first pull out the cotter pin and then pull out the castle nut using a 17 mil, and then we're going to pop it loose. Okay, so now you got the castle nut off of the lower ball joint. Then what I used was I actually had to go to the store and pick up a special bolt extractor tool to get it out, and that's how I got it out. Next, you need to pop the steering knuckle out of the lower control arm. So to remove the lower ball joint from the lower control arm, you're going to need to use a pickle fork or a ball joint separator that they sell on Amazon. I'm going to use this pickle fork and insert it right into here, into the groove, and then I'm gonna hit it down with a hammer, and that's gonna pull the lower ball joint out of the control arm, the lower control arm. So after you hammer it a bunch of times, this is what it should look like when it's out of the way. So the next thing you got to do is take this locking ring off of the axle end before we can pull out the lower ball joint, and you got to do that by using a Phillips head screwdriver and a hammer. Now that you got the locking ring out, now use a ball joint press and get the lower ball joint out of the steering knuckle. Okay, so we removed the old ball joint using the ball joint press and the impact driver. Make sure to use a 22 mil, and make sure it has to wrap one around here, and then the other has to directly hit right here. So when you use the impact driver, it pushes it up and out. Now we're gonna go put the new one in. All right, so this is the new ball joint, and it is gonna go into here. So when we're putting the new ball joint in, what we need to do is use our C-clamp again, and it's going to press on the top of the ball joint, and then the bottom clamp part is going to go under here. Alrighty, I got the brand new ball joint in. So basically what I did was I had the clamp. I basically had the clamp with this part onto the top here, and then I used this, which is going to wrap around the steering knuckle, and I just popped that in there, and then I used the clamp with the impact driver, and I just blasted it in. Next step you got to do is get your Phillips head and your hammer and knock this back in here. So after whacking it like a million times, we got the lock ring back in, and then you can reverse the steps, put some anti-seize onto this part right here, and then just reverse the steps and put everything back together. Okay, so now that you're here, you put everything back so that lower ball socket is back in the control arm, like this, and then make sure just put the castle nut on. And while you're at it, make sure you have your axle nut. Might as well put that back on as well, so you don't forget. And then beat down on the dimple once it's fully tightened, so that way it locks up nice and easy. And also put your tie rod, well, that's tight, put that back in as well. All right, so you have the lower ball joint castle nut and cotter pin put in now, and then torque down the axle nut and pop your tie rod back in. All right, now you put your tie rod back on and everything else is on, and just your axle nuts torque down, and just pop your wheel back on and lower the car. That's it. Thanks for watching.